Look, Alfie, let's be blunt. These autumn internationals, they've been an embarrassment for the home nations, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been dreadful so far. I think England and Wales are two separate cases. I mean, Wales came into this autumn not having won a game. They were bottom in the Six Nations. We knew they were in a really tough period, and that has simply continued. And they were poor yesterday against Australia. Admittedly, an Australia team that themselves are improving, that scored 3 tries when Wales had a player sent off, which kind of tells its own story, really. England, I think, is slightly different because after the summer tour, when England went to New Zealand, they lost both test matches, but there was this real feeling that this was an England side that had an identity, that were improving, that were moving forward. It was also off the back of the Six Nations where they beat Ireland at Twickenham in a great game. So this autumn has been a bit of a reality check for England. They haven't kicked on in the same way, and the last 3 weekends have been massively disappointing. They'll play Japan this weekend, a game they really should win, but even if they were to win that game this autumn, from an England perspective, will go down as a failure.
Why is that? Is that because we're short of players at the moment, or the team's not bonding? What is that?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, Stuart. There was an upheaval in the coaching team during the summer. England lost their head of S&C and their defence coach resigned unexpectedly. Now, Steve Borthwick needs to shoulder a portion of the blame for that because he's in charge of the environment. Felix Jones, the defence coach, essentially, from what's been reported anyway, hasn't said it publicly, said that he was unhappy with an unstable working environment, whatever that means. We don't really know. But what it means, England have had this situation where Felix Jones is basically kind of on gardening leave. He's working from Ireland, we understand it, doing analysis. You've got a new defence coach who is working with the setup, but the RFU didn't buy him out of his contract fully. So he's also still a coach in the second division in the French league at the moment. So there's been changes in the coaching setup. And then I think we've also seen the shortcomings in this team. I think the players also have to look at themselves here, because even if you look at 3 of the tries they conceded on the weekend, that wasn't coaching mistakes. It was them getting their kicks charged down and then some really sloppy missed tackles as well. So a whole combination of things, really.
You mentioned, Alfie, Japan next. Now, Japan have been whipping boys for some of the major nations recently. England don't just need to win, they need to win. It needs to be a thrashing, doesn't it? If it's not, can Steve Borthwick survive?
Well, what we're hearing is that the RFU don't immediately want to get rid of him. They're going to review this year in January. And
shouldn't take much of a review, really, should it?
Not really, no. I mean, this year, England, what is it, since 2018, this is their worst losing run. They've lost 3 games at home for the first time in a long, long time. I can understand, even though the results are poor, why the RFU would look at it and still want to stick with Steve Borthwick, or at least still want to give him the Six Nations. Because again, 3 games ago, and I know in the context of international rugby, 3 games is actually a decent amount, but 3 games ago, this was an England team that, broadly speaking, everyone felt pretty positively about. If they looked at it and said, you know what, Steve Borthwick is a good coach, let's give him time, let's give him the Six Nations and an opportunity to be able to try and turn this around, I actually think in some ways that there's a lot of reasons that would make sense.
That brings up the question then, if they did decide to make a change, who were the candidates to do so?
And I think that hits the nail on the head, because I don't think the RFU are looking at it and have obvious candidates to immediately take the team forward. And I think that is part of it's not the best reason in the world, is it? Let's stick with him because we're not sure who else we're going to bring in. But I think that is a real part of this, Stuart, that I'm not sure the RFU are sure.
From a Wales perspective, we heard the clip with Warren Gatland. They're saying he wants to make sure that whatever happens now is best for Welsh rugby. Do you feel that Warren Gatland thinks he's gone as far as he can with Wales?
Well, quite possibly. Warren Gatland offered his resignation at the end of the Six Nations when Wales lost every single game and got the wooden spoon, and it was turned down on that occasion by the WRU. I think what Warren Gatland was saying there and what we heard in that clip is someone else going to get more out of this team? That's something they need to consider and discussions they need to have. I think that's very difficult to be able to determine at the moment, actually, because you look at that Wales team and they're very inexperienced. And I'm not sure they should really be beating any of these teams. So you're going to bring a new coach in to maybe win a couple more games? Or I think what Gatland was saying was, does a changing coach take care of some of the negativity at the moment? Does it wrestle the narrative back in their favour? So from that point of view, I actually think there's more reason to get rid of him. In terms of someone getting more out of this group, I'm not sure at the moment.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.